Welcome to Southside Sox Hangout. I'm Slyder Nelson. Joining me for this podcast is Hazy Mania and Pnoles. So for the week of January 19th, it is currently Sunday. The past week, arbitration news was flying off the press releases for Major League Baseball. Outside of Chicago, the big news is Los Angeles Dodgers, obviously on the hunt for Masahiro Tanaka, but they have opened up the bank for Clayton Kershaw, giving him a 7-year, $210 million contract to stay in Los Angeles. Vice versa, in Tampa Bay, a pitcher almost the same caliber as Kershaw, David Price, avoided arbitration with the Rays, signing a 1-year, $14 million deal. And in Chicago, big news for us, Gordon Beckham and Alejandro Diaz avoid arbitration, both signing a 1-year, $4 million deal. Now, Pnoles and Hazy, unfortunately, Diaz and Beckham are not in the same league when it comes to the impact of arbitration deals as Kershaw and David Price. However, there was the thinking of, Hahn was able to sign Dayan Viciedo a week earlier than Diaz. Diaz is going to make roughly about $1.4 million more this upcoming year. You have a $7 million platoon in left field. And you can make an argument that it doesn't make sense. There's those that are on the boat that are like, right now Alejandro Diaz is probably our third best offensive player. He should play every day. And you have some people in the other boat saying Dayan Viciedo can hit 25 home runs a year. He's still a young guy. He should play every day. Based on these arbitration deals, these 1-year, $4 million deals, not breaking the bank whatsoever, Pnoles, how does this impact Diaz's situation in Chicago after signing this deal?
Well, I think that if the team is as it stands right now, as you say, I think he's got to be the long half of, at the bare minimum, the long half of the platoon in left field. I think that his salary makes him, he's definitely worth more than what he's being paid, which makes him a definite trade chip. I've kind of thought for a little while now that Rick Hahn was probably going to wait until, at the very least, when the Tanaka business is over with, and if it's confirmed that we're not going to have Tanaka, it becomes a little bit easier to ship him out of town. So I think we kind of have to wait for that domino to fall before we see whether he's going to be with us to start the season. I also, as Larry has mentioned several times, and this makes a lot of sense too, is that spring training unfolds for a bunch of other teams. Injuries are going to pop up and needs are going to be opened, and Diaz is definitely a player that could fill a need for a lot of teams if somebody goes down or even before then. So that's my thoughts on it.
Right, for $4 million, he's not bad investment for a bench player, a player worth half a win. Hazy, I know you and I have had this conversation. White Sox fans today are arguing, it's this whole who is the tallest midget between Viciedo and Diaz. Both of them probably worth half a win, and through the calculations and fantastic articles during this last season from Colin, going into as far as a win is worth about $6 to $7 million. Do you see a lot of teams wanting to call Rick Hahn and be like, hey, I need a fourth outfielder? Is Diaz available?
Well, I think fourth outfielder, and Diaz is a starting option for a solid third of the teams in the league. I'd probably say I caught Jim's comments in one of his pieces where he was responding to a post about what Diaz's value was, and he outlined just off the top of his head probably 7 or 8 teams that Diaz would be you could slot Diaz in right away, and that would be their starting left field starting center field option going into the season. So I don't think he's necessarily pigeonholed as a fourth outfielder, but personally, if Diaz, and we talked about this earlier in the week, Sly, is that if Diaz is on the team on opening day, okay. If he's traded, okay. I mean, the 2014 White Sox are such an enigma at this point that it remains to be seen. it's impossible to tell what to expect. There's so many things that still have to break before we before we know how things are going to shake out. I think that if Diaz, if Diaz and Viciedo is your platoon and left, and and that's costing you 7 million, and you're saying, okay, well, basically the value of one win is 7 million. Then yes, you're going to get that value out of those two put together, I think.
Let's flip it to the other side. Gordon Beckham. Pnoles, it's pretty widely known that this is Beckham's last chance as far as being a White Sox and making it and being part of the cornerstone or the foundation of this rebuild. However, there are teams out there that have really bad options at second base right now. Based on his 1-year, $4 million deal, he's still young. The guy does have potential. Are you kind of surprised, and maybe we're just not hearing it out in the rumorville, that not more teams are knocking on the door to ask about availability for Gordon Beckham?
Well, I don't think that there's a ton of surplus value in that contract. Again, the more teams have some guy go down or some hole opens up on somebody's roster, that's going to increase the likelihood that somebody will come calling on him. Obviously, the internal options for the White Sox are kind of piling up a little bit, and Beckham finds himself in the middle of a log jam around now. But the other thing that has been talked about a little bit has been Marcus Semien and the timeline. Am I even pronouncing that right? I'm not even sure.
Semien, I think.
It sounds good.
Semien,
I don't know why. I don't know why. That's kind of embarrassing. But for a second, I literally did not even know if that was correct.
Let's put it this way: in broadcasting, once you say a name, you just go with it. Do not flip flop.
Well, I'm sorry. I'm
showing, go with one enunciation.
Rippiness over here.
But you did
pieces for that one, but
well, you're talking about the log jam. It is quite a bit of a log jam. Super 2 status, obviously, it does make an impact when guys get called up and they become everyday starters. If the White Sox wait until, I believe, after the All-Star game, they can avoid the Super 2 status with Semien. That is a good timeline as far as time, because that's also conveniently around the trade deadline as well. So is this the same scenario, Pnoles, in which White Sox fans all have to be on the Gordon Beckham bandwagon in the sense of if he plays extremely well, fantastic, it gives the White Sox a better chance to win more times than not. And if he plays fantastic and they're still not winning, he's just like Adam Dunn. He could be attractive trade bait for teams that are in contention and needs a boost in the infield. And he's only making $4 million this year.
Yeah, I mean, I think that with Semien's timeline coming up, the arbitration clock starting around like the All-Star break to avoid the Super 2 status, I think it kind of makes sense to wait and see on Beckham. You know, maybe he breaks out. Maybe this is a situation where he finally figures himself out. I mean, when he first started playing last year, he was hitting the ball pretty well he didn't have the power because of like the wrist issue and everything. So we'll see how that heals up, and hopefully, I forget how old he is. Is he going to be 27 this year?
Yeah,
Beckham?
27.
Mm-hmm.
27, yeah. So sometimes the age 27 seasons are pretty magical, so we'll see.
Yeah, either you figured it out or you don't have it figured out, and you may not figure it out.
Wait, ask Brent Lillibridge how good age 27 felt.
He finally hit puberty that year. It was a great year.
Well, let's talk about the other options, Hazy. With obviously Viciedo, Diaza, and Beckham avoiding arbitration for the White Sox. I want to touch on Pnoles' logjam because Davidson avoids Super 2 status in August. When you're looking at third base, this is going to be a recurring theme of why in the hell is Connor Gillespie still on this team? Oh, yeah, that's right. Just Jeff Kepicker's still on this team.
Mm-hmm.
Is this a scenario where Hahn just needs to ignore that and just suck it up and understand that, yes, it will impact the team's finances a little bit, but I need to play the best guys right away. I guess this kind of continues the conversation we had last week in the sense of what should White Sox fans be thinking here when it comes to third base, because Keppinger is a utility guy. He is a second and third baseman. Good God, he should not be playing short, and I do not know why he plays first.
Because somebody has to.
Right, but you also have Garcia, who it looks like he's going to be starting the year in Charlotte. He can be a super utility guy, especially center field and at second base. But with Beckham slotted in as starting second baseman until a deal that makes sense. But while Marcus Semien, okay, maybe he easily slots in at second base, what do you do at third? I mean, does it still make sense to platoon for the time being, or do you chat with Robin and talk about how Matt Davidson should have every opportunity to become the starting third baseman in spring training and not have the backup plan of, oh, it's okay, he can go to Charlotte until August?
Well, I think last season injuries, the injury to Beckham's wrist early on last year kind of threw a wrench in the third base platoon that I think that they had intended when they brought Gillespie over to kind of be that lefty righty option with Keppinger at third. So I think that personally I think that that's kind of what Han is hoping will break even for them. Just break league average at third base with those two going back and forth. With the correct platooning there. Personally, in my eyes, I don't think that this team. There's no reason to bring Davidson up on day one with this team. I don't think. I think you wait for his August cutoff.
Even if you think he is the best third baseman.
I think that you have to be prudent about it, and you have to look at how much you're going to save by keeping him down there for the duration of the early part of the season. Obviously, if someone goes down in spring training or somebody goes down in the earlier part of the year and you call him up just if he's on the roster, he's starting, and I think that. I think that if you've got to look long term with this, and if you've got you have Gillespie and you have Keppinger on this team, unless Han's able to move Gillespie between now and then, they're not going anywhere.
Right.
You have to do something with them, so you may as well give that another shot out there and try to save a couple bucks down the line. And maybe that's the White Sox being cheap, but maybe the White Sox should be cheap in this situation. I don't disagree with that line of thinking. I think that I think you want to try to get as much value out of the players that you can internally for as long as possible. And if that means you wait until early to mid August to bring Davidson up and then you turn the car over to him, then so be it. I think you're going to be looking at a different team, post July 31st anyway. Han is going to move. Somebody has got to move here, and there's going to be room. There's going to be room up here by July 31st. I would say. I don't know who's going to move. If it's going to be Beckham. If it's if they somehow if they get it in their heads that they can move Ramirez, or if Gillespie or even Keppinger. I mean, at that point, Keppinger is just going to have a season and a half left on that deal anyway. If he can get moved on to a team that needs that true utility player, then you've got
right.
then you're bringing Davidson up and he's the guy, and he's the guy for the foreseeable future at third until he proves that his glove can't stick there and they start looking into other things they can do with him. But that remains to be seen. And who knows? I mean, there's really no way of telling, but will a spring training with Robin Ventura help Davidson's glove? Maybe. It's hard to say. And that's why I think maybe another 2/3 of a season down in Charlotte might do him some good. To work. Hopefully work on his glove work a little bit, because it's left something to be desired. It's my understanding. So.
Interesting. So, Pnoles, The other coin that I want to chat about is the very real scenario that Aza and Beckham are playing very well. Both of them are still arbitration available for the next couple of seasons. Let's talk about Beckham. If Beckham comes out and let's say he's having an all-star caliber year at second base, which looking at the American League outside of Robinson Cano, doesn't look like there's, and Jason Kipnis for the Cleveland Indians. Those are the two guys. Oh, and Dustin Pedroia, you're right. So let's say he's playing along just as well as those guys are. I mentioned at the beginning of this podcast that Clayton Kershaw avoided arbitration by signing a long-term deal. The White Sox geniusly avoided arbitration with Chris Sale, signing him to a long-term deal.
Yep.
It's beautiful. It's a beautiful deal. Like
It is a beautiful deal. We see it throughout Major League Baseball now. Ryan Braun, even though with the whole PD scandal, the Brewers saved quite a bit of money, signing him to a long-term deal to keep him in Milwaukee. Beckham is coming to his age 27 year. And there are people out there as far as scouts that think that he does have potential. What if he plays out of his mind in the first half of the season? How do you think that impacts as far as Marcus Semien? Because maybe Semien's ceiling is where Beckham is today, just a middle-of-the-road second baseman. And we're making up a bunch of hoopla about a guy who may not be that much better than Beckham. Does Han play with the idea of going into that year of talking about a long-term extension to avoid arbitration with him in that scenario?
This is assuming that Beckham breaks out and starts playing at an all-star caliber level. Yeah, I mean, I think if he starts playing like that, then that'll be signs that he hasn't shown us since his rookie year. And I mean, yeah, it might seem a little bit suspicious, but I mean, you have the fact that the injury would be healing up a little bit for him, and he's coming into his prime. So yeah, I mean, I think it'd be something to think about if he did show the ability to play at that level. And I think that at that point, Semien starts to become the trade chip.
Yeah, because I think Marcus Semien got really screwed over in this offseason. Didn't he? Like, before these moves, he was really looking like he was going to be the starting third baseman. And then the White Sox acquired Matt Davidson. They did not get rid of Connor Gillespie. Now it looks like that he's going to have to compete for the second base slot for a guy who was a former number one draft pick by the Chicago White Sox, who has shown flashes of potential, who is still young and entering now into the prime of his career. Personally, I think the chips are stacked against Marcus Semien. And I think there's a very good chance, depending on the deal, that he may not be a Chicago White Sox in 2014, just because he's got a much larger hurdle to clear than, let's say, Matt Davidson or any of our toolsy outfield prospects that are waiting in the wings to replace Biciedo and Diaz. Is that a fair statement to make, Pnoles?
Yeah, I'd say that the hurdles are they're kind of stacked against it a little bit for the reasons you mentioned. But, I did just say that, like, if Beckham breaks out, that, it would be a good idea to extend him. But at the same time, I'm not really holding my breath on that. And I still think there's a decent chance that Han pulls off a Beckham deal before the start of the season. And I think that, with it, I know I've mentioned Tanaka a lot, but like once that domino falls and like you've got spring training injuries in other teams, I think that people are going to come calling. And Han obviously is well aware that he has Semien as a backup option in the event of a Beckham deal. So yeah, I think there's a chance that Han might yet clear space for him.
It'll be interesting. So final question of this podcast. Sox Fest is next weekend, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. For those that have not, you can go buy individual tickets now. They're $50 either for the Saturday or Sunday session. I will be going Saturday at 9 o'clock. That's the session that I'm going to. So obviously next week's podcast, we are going to have, more to chat about in regards to moves, changes, and announcements because Han and Intro won't be there. But as a preview to Sox Fest and possible some, new news, what are your thoughts as far as any announcements that may be made at Sox Fest next week?
Return of Bobby Jenks. Absolutely. That's the
That's the bit. That'll put the butts in the seats.
If I am there on Saturday and they say that we have offered Bobby Jenks a minor league deal, I am going to lose my mind. All right. Yeah, so Hazy's prediction is the signing of Bobby Jenks. Pnoles, what are your thoughts?
Incentive-laden deal. That's what it's incentive.
Oh, man.
Well,
you really can't laugh at that because you never know what may happen as far as the bullpen scenario.
Yeah, I mean, I guess, I don't know, since I'm kind of bearish, I know that we were listed in the finalists for Tanaka, but I think that if there is anything announced, it'll be something kind of minor. So, but I don't know, maybe we'll just add like more catcher depth somehow.
Gotcha.
Sorry, I know that's not exciting, but I really just am terrible at pulling predictions like that out of my ass.
Right.
Off top, is Minnie Minoso still alive? Are they going to bring him back for one game?
That was his thing, wasn't it? Sign him for a day so he played in the decade. Yeah, that was the same back in the day. What are your thoughts? My dark horse prediction. Obviously, the elephant in the room for this upcoming season is Robin Ventura's deal. He's coming into his last season as well. Do you think that Han would offer him an extension just where this current state of the team is? Because you can make the argument that it doesn't make much sense that after this season, if the White Sox struggle, that a new manager coming in is suddenly going to change things. But I guess my dark horse is going to be something along the lines of the White Sox announced that Ventura has been extended for 2 years. I know that may not make some people happy on the board, but if just pulling random announcements out of our butts, I think that's one that's my prediction.
It's a possibility. It's more interesting than what I said anyway.
But he's not. Yeah. He's not Han's guy though. That's the sticking point for me here. Is that it was still a Kenny hire, and it doesn't line up with what I see Han's vision of the team being. Sorry, what was that?
I guess I see where you're coming from, Hazy. But while he's building the team, you know what? I don't know. Maybe I'll have to have the guts and just ask him that question next week. How involved has Robin been in player decision making? Because if it comes off to very little, then I am totally backing off of my prediction. And then Hazy, you're probably going on that. We're on that road. He's not Han's guy, and maybe Han's already looking to make a change after the year, or not even thinking about extending him. Or vice versa, if Han makes it very believable that Robin has been part of every player decision making as far as all the trades and acquisitions, then, maybe he's grown on Han. I don't know. But we definitely know that 2014 will be a transitional year. So we'll wrap up. That'll be a good point to wrap up as far as this podcast. So Hazy, Pnoles, thank you guys so much for jumping on, chatting as far as arbitration. And for this week as well, in a separate podcast, to get the opportunity to listen to our thoughts about the instant replay changes. And to make sure that you guys put in the comments in the fan post. Let us know your thoughts as far as the podcast. If you'd like to jump into the podcast, we are.
Tell me I'm an idiot.
More White Sox fans.
Hazy Mania is an idiot.
Yeah. And if you have certain topics that you want us to. And if you, as far as the fans, have anything you want us to chat about, and as far as the Southside Sox Hangouts, put in a comment in the fan post, or you can email us as well at sss.hangouts@gmail.com. We do post the podcast on YouTube, so make sure that you subscribe to our YouTube channel for any new future Or you can go into the archives now as we are done with week 3 of the podcast, and you can listen to some of our past podcasts just for fun. So for Hazy Mania and Pnoles, I'm Slyder Nelson. Make sure to tune in next week as we chat about the happenings at Sox Fest and see what the magic ball looks like for the Chicago White Sox in 2014. Thanks for listening. Chat with you next week.